Hello and welcome to the last ever scan airing of Ask an Atheist. Ask an Atheist, we are a live educational call-in program, well normally. Dedicated, not live this time, but still dedicated to the atheism, skeptical inquiry, and the separation of church and state. I am Mike Gillis, and joining me this week, Sam Mulvey and Casey Doran.
Hello.
Good to be here.
Good.
Indeed.
Yeah. Yes, so it's been an interesting week. We don't know because we're not there yet. We will join you soon enough.
We are talking to you from the distant past.
Yeah, this is the last episode on here. Unfortunately, SCAN is not doing live broadcasts anymore. However, we can still reach to you through the wonders of video. And unfortunately, we can't take calls this week, but we do have a lot of audience interaction.
We do. Some of you may actually be listening to this on our live stream at our website, www.askanatheist.tv. And our call-in phone number is there if you would like to call, but we're not going to mention the phone number today because if you were to call when this is airing in Seattle, no one would pick up and it would kind of be weird.
That so reminds me of one of the greatest Dr. Show Mr. Show sketches ever, where he's doing the topic from last week, and everyone keeps calling in, and he has to keep clarifying. No, if you wanted to talk about guns in school, you should have been calling in last week so we could hear about it this week.
I like that they cut into it, and each preceding one, he's got slightly more hair. It's a great sketch.
It's a great sketch. So, unfortunately, we can't take live calls unless you are watching us through the magic of the internet right now. So, however, if you still want to give us a phone call, we still can take voicemails. Give us a call at 206-420-0997. Drop us a voicemail, and we promise that we will get to it on a future broadcast, as we will today.
Hooray.
So, one thing that we've talked about a couple weeks past is that there was an organization called We Can Know. We Can Know is a fundamentalist Christian organization that's been putting up billboards around the country with an interesting bit of news. Apparently, Jesus is coming back next year.
Look busy.
Not only that, he's going to be coming back in exactly 146 days. So we have what I like to call the countdown to backpedaling. So there remains maybe just a little bit over 5 months until Jesus returns. So now would be the time to get good with God, or to just laugh when this guy inevitably crashes and burns. So 146 days, folks.
It's not like we haven't seen It's Like Before.
Yeah. I was going to say, well, at least this is one that we get to find out and then laugh about before, and we don't have to wait until the end of 2012 for it to laugh about it.
Right.
We have, half a year or something to...
Notice it's almost exactly 1 year and 3 months before the 2012 thing, like he's trying to preempt it.
Yeah, seriously, well, if he wants to... It's just like the Quran burner guy. He's just like, how am I going to try to upstage someone else for publicity campaign? Oh, I know, make the end of the world a year sooner.
So... clock is ticking.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens to this guy's site in 5 months. Does it come down? Does he backpedal? Does he pretend it doesn't happen? Only time will tell.
We should have like a betting pool, I think. That'd be nice.
Yeah, so if anyone wants to email us, please go to askanatheist.tv, our website, and tell us what you think the odds are. Does anyone want to take money on this? Do you think that this is going to come back? Because if Jesus comes back, will egg be on my face? I think at that point, it's just like, well...
This could be that Bigfoot defrosting thing from a couple of years ago.
Oh, or when this guy actually claimed to have found Bigfoot's body, and then it was like a rubber mask and a wig that they'd frozen in a block of ice.
Right.
You're just eventually going to get caught with something like that. You think they're just going to keep it frozen?
Well, they knew, the Bigfoot guys knew they were going to get caught. It was all sort of a media building technique for them. It's like, look, we got y'all, pay attention to us. Now we're going to be advertisers.
That's my favorite thing with a lot of these claims is that whenever somebody perpetrates an absolute hoax on people, there's always going to be the true believers who are going to come forward. These guys who demand to be taken seriously every other time, who say, no, this is it. This is the proof. This is the smoking gun. We have it now. Now you won't laugh. There's no way this could have been a fraud.
Right.
And it always is. I've seen it with this UFO example. I've seen it with UFOs. I've seen it with this Bigfoot example, just countless times.
But what I don't understand, Mike, and you probably know a little better than I do, is like Hal Lindsey is like the crown prince of making predictions about the end of the world. And I don't know how many. Doesn't JRAF has like a on his debunk section about how many times the world has been ended.
Oh, it's several pages long.
But here's the question: how does this not enter into like the boy who cried wolf scenario, where it's sort of like, if someone continually says something is the case, and it turns out not to be the case over and over again, when do we just? I guess maybe no one cares about how.
I mean, I'm sure we've mentioned this before in the future, but one of my favorite examples is 88 Reasons the World Will End in 1988.
Right.
Which,
Exactly.
strangely, out of print.
Out of print. You can. So, I think there's some on eBay still, but they're
Oh,
really
they're used,
expensive.
yeah.
I'm pretty sure that the person who wants to get rid of these things more than anyone is
However,
the guy who wrote it.
Almost every Goodwill I've been to, and I frequent them a bit, has a copy.
Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure people turned theirs in probably 1988.
Sure.
So they've been sitting around for a while. But I think the reason that a lot of people don't get into this cry wolf territory is that, one, the people who follow this guy aren't really acting rationally in the first place. That's how somebody like Peter Popoff, who is a faith healer, who has been caught having a little radio transmitter in his ear, and the fact that he's getting fed from his wife backstage information about people that is apparently he's getting supposedly through revelation. He can be completely debunked by somebody like James Randi, yet he goes away but like Pac-Man, his little eyeballs go to that square in the middle of the screen, and he gets a new body, and oh hey, he's back to being holy again. People want to forget. I think.
I do want to say that making a claim that can be proved false usually is not a good idea for religions, because once you start making claims in reality, you start losing your audience and your claims don't come true. Except I think that's how the Jehovah's Witnesses started.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is that actually a lot of things like Seventh-day Adventists, these were people who really believed, like actually Christianity's founders, that they were living in the end times. And so technically the end times have been happening since the beginning times. That we're always in that, sort of moment. It's like, okay, anytime now, still waiting.
All right.
No.
Right. My only comment on that is a Nietzsche quote that I just read very recently that I'd never heard before, which he said, "Memory says, I did this thing, to which pride replies, I could not have done this thing. But memory fades and pride endures." So that to me says about the religious impulse so much, where it's like, truth, it doesn't matter if things have to be factual or true. All you have is your pride's perception of what you think you want yourself to be and what you want the world to be. And if it makes you feel good, hell, forget about memory, forget about facts.
But that's the thing, I think, is when there's no real consequences to being wrong about this stuff.
Yeah, that's true.
We're talking about people who put specific dates on this. Dates that they know are going to be within their lifetime, dates that are going to happen in the very near future when the ink is still going to be slightly wet on the press release he sent out. So the memory is still sort of there. He's not like saying this is going to happen 50 years from now, where he's just like, I'll be dead then and I won't be around to be embarrassed. We're talking about something that his followers are just simply go, oh, we were misinterpreted, sorry, princess is in another castle. And I think that the thing that would have to happen is, if you're somebody who really does believe this, and I think that for you to give yourself that frame of reference where it's saying, okay, this is happening in our lifetime, they must really believe it. That's an evidence for them being a true believer, setting themselves up for that kind of near-term embarrassment. But here's the thing: if you really do believe it, put some money down on it. Give a lot of your property away to the poor.
Some people do,
Yeah.
and in fact, before we move on, there's actually a really great index of stuff like that happening in history on the Tacoma Atheist website, which I believe is tacomaatheist.com. If you go there, there's right up at the top, there's an end of the world index that has a list going back to antiquity of people giving their crap away and then being proved wrong and suddenly realizing needing a house.
Well, I don't necessarily mean the followers of this. I'm talking about the leaders of this. If they really mean it, they should give their stuff away.
Oh, we know what that is.
Oh, we know that they're lying, but I'm just tossing it out there. I want them to basically grab the bull by the horns and prove that they really mean it. However, we know that they're going to backpedal. That's why we called this Countdown to Backpedaling. So I think that the best thing for these folks to do is put money down it. Because if this guy was picking horses the way they pick the end of the world, as they've constantly picked the end of the world, if people were losing money every single time they did it, that's when you'd stop listening to this guy.
Right. I just love the organization's name is We Can Know.
We Can Know.
You can't.
You can't.
You can't.
Don't pretend
Sorry,
that you
guys.
do.
Sorry.
All right.
All right. Moving along. We should probably do some viewer interaction stuff right now, or should we talk about the situation and transition to Scan?
Well, we can do both, actually, and we will do so via a couple emails here. As you know, as we've been talking about ad infinitum, we are transitioning to KLAY which is 1180,
1180
a.m. in Tacoma. And here are some emails about that transition. And this is from Dan, from the internet. What does the show moving to AM radio mean for the future of the podcast version of the show? I have not heard anyone mention what will happen to the podcast. I would hate to lose what has been a fairly decent show. That is a very simple explanation. Nothing. We're actually purchasing KLAY. We're actually buying time on that station to build our show, which means the content is ours, and we can continue to do with it what we've been doing with it. So, save for a break where we have there's no show January 2nd. There will be no changes to the podcast. They will appear, hopefully, actually sooner rather than later, since we're producing the show at a radio station. But there's no change there.
No change at all. If anything, the only change I can see is that we have access to a potentially much larger audience.
Yeah.
I mean, that's we can only move up from where we are. So.
There's certainly no change whatsoever to what our internet audience is, and they're rightfully should be worried, but there's no change technically about what they're going to experience.
One of the things we've been focusing on is trying to make the internet look of the show be as transparent as possible. You're going to go to the same places for the video and the audio, and it's going to look essentially the same. The set's going to be different because we're going to be in a radio station, but otherwise it's going to look very similar.
Yeah, same great content, same great taste, same bat channel.
Different bat channel.
Different bat channel.
Yeah.
But same bat time, though.
Same bat time. Same bat time. We actually, that is confirmed. The same time, 3 p.m. Pacific time, is when the show is going to be on KLAY. So you can hit our website, SCANatheist.tv, or their website, KLAY1180.com. Click on our live feeds and receive the program.
Absolutely. So we want to take some more emails?
Yeah, but you got another email about the transition.
Or did we want to do our voicemails? That's the question.
Well, there is a voicemail that actually directly ties into the transition.
Right.
Voicemail number 3, if we can cue that up, that would be great. So we're going to let them get that ready. But
Hey, this is Joseph in Athens, Georgia. I love what you guys are doing. I had a quick idea. First of all, I know how hard it is to get theists to call into these shows, but my idea is to have a few people in the hours before your show go on Facebook and go to the various, sort of Bible thumper interest groups and post to their wall, join the group and post to the wall saying that these Ask an Atheist guys are on live taking questions and that, they'd love to be challenged. And I think you'd end up, I think the Atheist Experience got one caller that way a few months ago, so it could be a good idea. Anyway, thanks.
Because sometimes I feel like that South Park episode where they're like, we're trying to do a show that hasn't already been done on The Simpsons.
sometimes.
I guess there's part of me that's somewhat uncomfortable with the idea of us essentially becoming official
Trolls.
internet trolls.
Yeah.
Well,
the other thing, too, is that even the standard of success that we're matching up against is, I think they once got a call that way a couple months ago.
yeah. Some people might wonder why I think this has to do with the transition, but to me, a live call-in talk show on cable television is something, or on cable television is something of a rarity, whereas a live call-in show on the radio is actually the status quo.
It's totally the status quo.
And so I think our transition to radio in Pierce County, which reaches southern Pierce County and Thurston County, and being on AM radio, which is known for its conservative talk, I'm sure we're going to get some very interesting calls that way.
Yeah, I certainly think that, of course, we will love it if people are still going to be able to discover the show by the internet. But as we've said before, probably the biggest benefit and hazard from the success of the Atheist Experience has just been the larger that its online presence got, the less likely they were to actually have callers that would actually make the show interesting. So.
Yeah, the internet sometimes has the effect of a bit of an echo chamber. That generally speaking, there's only two kinds of people that you can encounter over the internet. One is people who you're basically preaching to the choir, and the other one is internet gunslingers. And we're not entirely interested in either one of those. Though we do like a good idiot theist every so often. I also want to branch out to more than just that, where you end up having the same arguments over and over again. This isn't the same, YouTube battles with the same like 5 people over and over again. We're really not interested in that. A big part of it is we want to reach out to people who've never heard our arguments before, because a lot of times with the internet, unless you're looking for those arguments, you'll never find them.
Yeah, and if you're part of the internet whirlwind, like I guess I am, of atheism, non-atheism stuff, you might be surprised to find out that there are people out there who have no idea what the atheist position on things is. And, in work and in other environments, I encounter that all the time, which is why we think a continued show on a publicly accessible medium is important.
Right.
Yeah, that's why broadcast is essential, is that's how we reach people that would otherwise never know that we existed.
Yeah.
I don't want to just bounce around this tiny little corner of the internet. I want to broadcast ourselves outwards. And I think we're going to get far better calls talking to people locally, hearing us over the radio, who have never heard an atheist before, but may have heard a lot about us from their preacher, sort of a meta-analysis where they've never actually read The God Delusion or seen a lecture by Sam Harris or even met one of their neighbors who's an atheist, but they've heard a lot of people talk about them. Now this would be their first opportunity to actually interact with us. Not necessarily wanting to pick a fight, but wanting to understand who the hell we are and what we believe and why.
Yeah.
And I think that's the number one thing, is that this show has always been about correcting these misconceptions that people have about us. And those misconceptions exist because there really isn't a broadcast medium where we can respond to them that people actually hear.
Yeah, I mean, I think if I can go a little off script here for a little bit, I think we obviously all thought it was important to get on to public access and to get on a medium where people could actually call in and we could actually have this dialogue with the public. That's why the slow disintegration of SCAN was so devastating to us, but also devastating to a lot of other people who are here, and that we've obviously put a lot of effort into making sure that will exist in some comparable way outside of the steaming hulk that is left of SCAN after it's all there.
Yeah.
But I'm not trying to steal your thunder away, Mike, but I do have to say, for the people who we won't actually name, who are responsible for taking a well-funded public medium where you could let anyone on with very little technical knowledge and have a show, fuck you guys. You know who you are. You know who you are, who bring the entire reputation of public access and a means to express anyone's perspective without any gatekeepers. Instead, you'd spend your time accusing people of being the Antichrist, accusing a vast worldwide conspiracy of shutting down your flimsy, filthy little show on
a monotone show.
Yeah, monotone show
I think
on SCANtv because they're going to drop a nuke on Seattle if SCAN goes off the air. You guys are the problem. The problem isn't a conspiracy to silence all of us. The problem is the perception that you people, I don't even call them shows because I don't even think they're shows. I think they're not
It's
even
a video
entertainment.
sandwich board is what it is.
It's not even entertainment because it's not entertaining, and you guys were the problem.
Yeah, I think it's worth talking about the elephant in the room. That,
Sure.
Essentially what we have is, yes, it is your fault that SCAN got harpooned. And it isn't because you were too close to the truth and someone was shutting you down. It was because you are fucking crazy. And because people don't, if it comes down to the city council looking at this and saying, oh, okay, I can choose between cutting this after-school program or I can cut the show where they think Bigfoot faked the moon landing. That's the public perception. I know the money really doesn't come from taxpayers. I know that it comes from franchise fees from Comcast. But that's what it comes down to, is that if I'm a city councilman and I have to choose between the citizens group that protects the homeless, getting angry at me in the next election year, which is next year, or a bunch of people who are going to accuse me of being reptilian Illuminati agents, which one of these people, if they come and protest my office, can I just shrug off? And if the media sees it, they'll go, oh yeah, what a bunch of kooks. And I go, yeah. That, as a city councilman, playing the city council member role-playing game, that is an easy choice. And this is what public access should be. This should be a venue for nonprofits, for communities that don't have any other access to the media, to be able to get their voices out. This should be, it should not be crazy man screaming at the world. Or as they like to call it, speaking truth to power. They are speaking nonsense to each other.
It's very strange, and I feel a little bit right after the assassination in Shakespeare's Caesar. Fuck those people. Seriously. I've been like paying attention and doing a lot of close stuff with SCAN, doing what we can to save it. We didn't really want to go to radio. It really is a case of failing forward in this case. But sitting in the room with at the producers' meetings and listening, just dropping bombs of conspiracy into the middle of the whole thing.
The White House is shutting down the internet feed.
The White House is shutting down the stream because they don't like it. And then we're like, well, we don't have problems like that with the feed. And they, well, what is your show? Ask an Atheist. Oh, you're not going to have problems.
Yeah, I wish we'd asked a follow-up question to that. I mean, it was so crazy. Do they think we're behind it? Do they think we're spies? Do they think that the powers that be are just sympathetic to us? I really wish I'd asked.
And they mentioned this stuff apropos of nothing. One of the meetings I went to was, we were talking about the very early parts, and it was like, early parts of the SCAN problem was like, yeah, well, you know about the organizations within the Seattle bureaucracy. They don't really see an interest in cable access, so they're not going to fund it. Well, 9/11 was an inside job, and so that means that. And then that led into a conversation where the ISO 9000 standard kills people. It was just, it was, what? I can't really blame the politicians who cut SCAN, but
The public.
It's death of a public media.
It's death of a public media because the only people who used it were crazy. And this is the same thing I've said about the initiative process in Washington State. The reputation is built by the people who take advantage of it.
Yeah.
And if the only people who use the initiative process are right-wing lunatics who want to cut all revenue, that's the reputation of it.
Right.
It's like anybody can use this and anybody should use it because you got to crowd out the crazies and the nuts.
Yeah.
If the only people who use public access are people who think that D.B. Cooper has a satellite on the moon and they're using fluoride to be able to read your thoughts, that is what it's going to be. And that becomes their reputation, and it keeps good shows out of SCAN at the same time.
To be fair to the entire institution of public access, I'm sure every large city with a public access station has their their equivalent of the conspiracy nuts. It's just after Goddess Kring, after people who like to get naked on the channel, or maybe the reputation of Richard Lee, right?
That's the Kurt Cobain was murdered guy.
Yeah, the Kurt Cobain was murdered
Who
dude.
I know only by reputation.
Right.
I mean,
after that, I mean, yeah, you could expect that sort of thing to be around, but it really ends up being incredibly counterproductive. And I don't fault the people who work at SCAN for allowing them to do it.
I feel sorry for them.
Yeah.
The very fact that these people feel like they need to spend their lives pursuing this, despite the fact that it's obviously, I don't think they're ever going to get any gains from this. They're certainly not going to get any monetary gains for it, and I don't know what kind of societal or emotional gains they'll get from it. I would imagine it's a negative.
But the reputation that they gave SCAN harpooned the jobs of the good people who worked at SCAN and killed a public medium that should be used. I mean, except for maybe Channel 9 and local news, there isn't a lot of local programming on it.
No, there's some great programming on SCAN. There was, there's Bandish, there's the
High
Gardening
Bar?
Show, the High Bar, which I was on recently.
Yeah.
And those shows aren't going to have a home anymore because of the crazy.
Because of the crazy, because it doesn't matter how many good shows you get on SCAN. What ends up happening is that when we talk to anyone about having a show on SCAN, what are the three names that they mention all the time? Richard Lee, Goddess Kring, and Mike Hunt. Those are the names that they mention. It's crazy celebrities. It's like, I'm the nut job on the TV show who goes out and screams at people that you were in on the Kurt Cobain murder. Or
Michael Hunt, the porn guy?
I don't know.
Yeah, he's the porn guy.
The porn
Okay.
guy. See, this is a reputation
Notice
that
I
it
said
has.
Michael.
If you really had a great, I mean, there are people who run great political organizations. Let's just say they want to stop the genocide in Darfur. They could have a show talking about that in a level of detail that goes beyond maybe the 2 minutes that the mainstream media might give it when it has to compete with a lot of other topics.
Something I like to say, there's enough problems in the world that we don't have to go inventing them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing, is they're fighting imaginary dragons. They're even fighting imaginary windmills. That's how sad these people are.
I've occasionally fought imaginary dragons. I mean, I
yeah.
had paper like this and some dice with me as I was doing it. Yeah. Ooh,
Yeah.
Critical. But
But I look at these people and I'm like, what do they think they're accomplishing? Because even if they were right about anything, why would these people that secretly control the world even care? Their shows aren't even entertaining. They're like monotone mumble sessions. And it's like somebody can drop a total bomb about how the Hurricane Katrina was an inside job and nobody reacts. Isn't that a big deal?
Pent up over 6 months.
Seriously.
This is sort of a release for
I am.
us.
It feels good to talk about the nut jobs in the tinfoil coalition for the first time, whether it's Vest Guy or the Ganja Bandito.
Ganja
The guy
Bandito.
wears a mask. He wears a Bandito mask like he's going to rob like the gold shipment from Carson City.
Right. Well, if you guys ever want to know the identity of Ganja Bandito Man, just come to the studio when they're recording and you can just have a cigarette with him outside.
He has a smoke break. Go take a picture of him and see how he reacts.
Right.
It'll be awesome.
Or don't. It could be frightening.
I think it'd be worthy of YouTube at the very least.
Fair point, fair point.
Yeah.
But yeah, the thing is, nobody watches your show, so you're free to have a public identity. You are not Clark Kent. It's not like you have real enemies that would come after you at the Daily Planet. You could just go back to your job at Jamba Juice, and nobody would give a crap. Come on.
Oh, I need a cigarette.
Seriously.
Oh, that was good.
There's this weird thing with these conspiracy people. They really, it's this weird sort of sense of a mix of a persecution complex and delusions of adequacy. They really think they're having an effect, that there are going to be people hunting them down.
Well,
like
they're
they're in a
obviously
friggin'
having
Grisham
an
novel.
effect. Look at us.
Yeah,
This is awesome.
They're clearly having an effect. They're clearly having an effect.
We are the only people who watch your show.
That or Nightmare Fuel. Sometimes you guys get in a little bit on this.
A little bit of Nightmare Fuel. Oh my.
Oh, yeah. What a great show, by the way.
Vest Guy, by the way, he's like the stray dog in a movie, and you have to like throw rocks at him and make him go away. He will show up on our set while we're setting up and bother us. Going, Knights of Malta, blah, 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 mumble, mumble. It's like, dude, get out.
Knights of Malta, really?
Yeah, Knights of Malta.
I learn something every day.
Oh my God! Everything's about the Illuminati or Bigfoot, or they believe that the explosion of the oil tanker, that was an inside job. They think that the White House did that, and they did show you a blurry photo right there. That's a bomb.
I need a break. Want to do voicemail one?
Let's do a voicemail.
Let's do voicemail one while we
That was good. That was a good release.
gather our...
Fuck you guys.
No, voicemail one, actually.
Voicemail
one. So this one, I believe, has to do with the Eucharist. So...
If, in fact, as you mentioned in a previous episode, that the wafer has to be, they make the gluten-free wafers now for Catholic ceremonies, and this kind of flies in the face of transubstantiation. That it'd be interesting that if what you mentioned about it also being in some sort of quantum superposition, Schrodinger's cat event in the stomach, so that it's both transubstantiated and not transubstantiated, that would mean that if someone with celiac disease were to react to a wafer, in fact, the wave would be collapsed, and it would, in fact, just be a wafer, never be the flesh of Jesus. Therefore, they never actually took communion, and I think in the Catholic religion, that means you go to hell. So just an interesting concept there that, if it's in a superposition, that even if you take communion, if you get sick from it, then you didn't take communion. So all the Catholics should really keep that in mind, that even if you've taken it, you may not have taken communion, but you really still don't know. Anyway, great show. Thanks, bye.
Now, I'm a giant nerd. I mean, I make no secret about that, and I like arguing about things that don't exist. That's why I'm on this show. But I mean, I've had arguments about, could Spock beat up a Klingon? I've actually had these discussions before. When I hear that call, I feel like I've been out nerded. It feels like that part where I'm playing poker and I'm like, okay, that's just fold. That's too much. I told the Schrodinger's cat joke, and that's really what it was. I really don't care about what's in his stomach. It's a cracker.
Heisenberg uncertainty food.
Yeah.
At some point. I mean, I didn't go quantum. I didn't say anything about. I don't think anybody said anything about quantum superposition, and that was the point where I folded.
Yeah.
Oh,
No, I just
much for
heard.
me.
All I heard was Deepak Chopra in there when I was thinking, because he's like, oh, consciousness is the superposition of possibility and the existence of the universe or something. The way in which he takes like big fancy words that no one who reads his books actually knows the definition of, and it's like, oh, your mind can make things real. That's what I was just sort of thinking. Is this guy taking Deepak Chopra, wrapping it up in Bill Donahue, and maybe shoving it through the ass of?
perhaps, yeah. I mean, the thing is that this might be the way by which Catholicism returns to the diseases are demons thing, because celiacs means you're going to hell.
Right.
Is sort of the end point of this. And that's, I like that little concept, and we've gotten a lot of response on this discussion of Eucharist stuff, and so I'm waiting to see sort of the ping pong ball return on quantum superpositions of the cracker.
When I hear this stuff, I basically hear a Geordie LaForge speech, which is that I know a bunch of big... Yeah, it's a bunch of babble. I know that I've heard that when they actually wrote Star Trek Next Generation episodes, in the first draft of the script, they would actually write tech babble.
Yeah.
Because it really doesn't matter. And when I hear this stuff, I basically see bracketed tech babble. And
I think that the way that you discover the existence of God is actually to invert the polarity of the deflector dish to create an ionic pulse.
Yeah.
I think you're supposed to change the matter-antimatter mix ratio and create a reverse tachyon flow.
Of course.
Wrong! Wrong! As the local Scotty, completely have to reverse the polarity of the neutron flow. That's all you gotta do. And there's an email to go along with this one.
Eucharist.
This is from DJ Mallet from the internet. I love the name. And this is directed to
Wait,
me.
is he a disc jockey, or is his first two names being with a D and a J, like on...
I'm getting that from an email address, so your guess is as
what's
good
the
as mine.
Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen? I was Full House.
Yeah.
DJ Tanner.
I'm thinking DJ Mallet like he scratches with mallets.
Okay. That would be...
That'd be awesome. So this is a comment to Father Sam. Hey. You're wrong about the Eucharist thing. Catholic theology holds that the substance of the Eucharist changes into the delicious fleshy Jesus, but anything accessible to our senses, or presumably our digestive systems, are called the accidents, which do appear to remain bread. Convenient, isn't it? I guess our whole world is just accidents, which I like. So it is consistent with Catholic theology to offer gluten-free crackers. Thanks, Heretics Anonymous. Heretics Anonymous. Ha.
I thought that the accidents mostly appeared to be peanuts.
Elvis Costello did say accidents will happen. I mean, you know. So that's amazing. So that in any way you can interpret it, it's a cracker.
Right.
But if you don't believe that it turns into something else, then you're going to hell.
Yeah, I think you have to unfocus your eyes and stare at it at the right distance, and it becomes Jesus.
Well, should we continue on?
It's an interesting conversation, and like I said, I can't wait for the next movement. In
movement.
Oh, wow, we have a phone call. Matthew from Texas, who...
It's incredible.
I bet...
This is not possible that this is happening in reality. We're getting a phone call from the future.
From the future.
Yes.
Ooh. Are you there, Matthew?
Hello? Matthew, are you there?
Yes.
Hey.
Hey!
How's it going?
Pretty good. I bet you left us a voicemail, which we were going to play soon.
Yeah, I did.
I think Matthew just exploded.
No, Matthew, come back!
Hello?
Yeah,
Hey.
we still got you.
All right. Yeah, no, I really felt like I didn't really get my point across too well on that message, so I decided to go
sure.
ahead and call in.
Go ahead.
All right.
Okay, well, you see, my question is on the definition of, I've heard several times that atheism is the lack of belief in God.
Yes.
Right.
Okay. Now, the thing is that that atheism is, a view or, well, as I have here in several definitions of a philosophical position.
Well,
anyway.
Just getting in at the foundation, I would throw out the definition that atheism basically means not theism, so anything that does not have a belief in God. If you take theism as belief in a God, atheism means just not that. It's like in philosophical terms, like putting a tilde in front of an A means not A.
Yeah. Yeah, I see. Well, you see, because I'm curious about, because atheism, I've heard arguments that atheism is, default position or, well, anyway, my point being is that how can I lack belief be the definition of atheism when it says nothing about your position? Rather, this is a position I lack and that I am not. It's really like an autobiographical statement about your personal psychology towards religious claims.
Well, it's a position, though, right? It is a position. It's not the lack of a position. It certainly is a position. It's a position of which you say your claim, the claim that theists make towards a positive belief that there is a God. My position is that I do not believe that.
And
that's a position.
I think just as equally, the position of theism could also be a psychological response to the claims of God. I think your definition of this as not a position, but as a psychological response, actually cuts both ways.
Yeah. Well, You see, my point being is that a strong atheist could just as well make that claim of a weak atheist, even though there is no God.
Well, I think when we're just talking about just the definition of just the word atheism, we're not talking about making any. If you're talking about strong atheism versus weak atheism,
which we should actually probably explain.
Let's explain that really quick. Yeah. Strong atheism, under the popular definition, I don't really like these distinctions personally, is someone who specifically makes a positive claim that there is no God or there's very likely to be no God, versus weak atheism is generally represented as a lack of belief. In a weird sort
You'd
of...
like to make a...
looks like we lost Matthew
him.
there.
Right.
Well, maybe he'll call back.
Maybe he'll call back. I guess I could finish.
But, yeah, go ahead and finish your point.
I don't think these things are mutually exclusive. I lack a belief that a God exists. Just the same way I lack a belief that Bigfoot exists. And I do think this is a default position because if I'd never heard of Bigfoot or God, I would lack those beliefs. I would simply not have them. That's the same sort of thing with this. It's like if I've never heard of a God, yes, I'm an atheist. The same way I've never heard of any number of things.
There's also a position, there's also sort of a thing here about position, that the idea that a position must be all-encompassing, must entail a complete philosophy,
Right.
and I think that's kind of a fallacy.
Right.
I have a position on God. There isn't one.
Right.
That doesn't, and like I say a lot, like I said on the High Bar and on a couple episodes here and continue to say, atheism is a very short definition, no God. Anything beyond that is a position about something else.
Yeah.
There's another philosophy piled on top of that.
Right.
It's just that theism doesn't exist in a vacuum, right? Because theism, it carries along with it a loaded, many loaded meanings about, or many loaded extra pieces about what that means, and that usually entails like, you know, benevolent and creates everything, and you know, cares about the direction of our species. I think there's all these things that are. No, I mean, I really think that. I think when we're for a rule of thumb, we're always talking about. We're not just talking about this abstract existence of something that we call God. Where God is loaded with a lot of other characteristics that.
Right.
I mean,
no theist is going to say otherwise. They're going to say.
I think it's inevitable that this, because that's the cultural standard. But I'd make the argument, like you said, it cuts both ways. Theism says absolutely nothing either. It says nothing about what this God is, what its principles are, what its properties are, what it wants, if it wants anything at all, whether it even has personal qualities. It says absolutely nothing.
Right.
Because if your position is only theism, that there is a God, you have very little to sell and no method of control.
Yeah. It says absolutely nothing about anything else that you believe, whether this God cares about whether you have premarital sex or whether it approves or disapproves of the death penalty. It says absolutely nothing.
I was going to say, that buttresses really well into this email we have here. Do you mind if I read it?
Go right ahead.
This is great. So this is in response to our show on obsession with virginity. And Alice from Leeds, UK says, hey, regarding last week's show, I was thinking it over, and what about widows? If you save yourself until marriage, then your husband dies, what do you do? Surely you're not a virgin anymore, so you can't really save yourself.
Or if you're married to Tom Cruise.
So can you be a total slag, she asks.
Zing!
Or do you have to keep yourself pure until you remarry? Anyways, just a thought.
I kind of got the impression from this that
Total slag.
Total slag. Love it.
But I think that the general attitude of a lot of these, at least religions that care about premarital sex, is that it isn't just premarital sex. I think it's any kind of sex outside of marriage that they would just largely disapprove of. The thing that I find a little odd is that when you're essentially marrying somebody, and the idea that when most people get married, they think of themselves being married to this person for eternity, including into the afterlife.
Sure.
This does present a certain problem. If that person dies before another person and they're remarried, what happens in the afterlife now when you're sort of inadvertently Mormonish?
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of weird to actually reconnect with someone that you've kind of gotten over in a lot of ways. That's another reason I'm glad that I don't believe in an afterlife, is I really don't have to wrestle with this sort of
Well,
stuff.
the weird thing is in the big three religions, the widows usually get kind of passed off to the younger brothers or something like that. Is you know, this is back to in the Virgin Obsession episode, treating women like property. And in the big religions, a widow has like special case with special rules. With no, you can't just go back and be a total slag. You have to go live with some member of the family and not be their wife, but basically hang out and
Seems like
do all the cooking.
Because if there was that sort of loophole to be a total slag in the parlance of our times, then it seems like the way to find a loophole to become, promiscuous would simply be just to marry somebody who's terminally ill.
Yeah.
and then it's like, boom, no.
Yeah, okay. I got a reason. I've got a card. Widow. All right.
Okay.
Totally hitting the swingers club.
I should probably read another one as well. Here's a email that we got from somebody named John. John says, "Hi, ellipses. What is the difference between a theist and a religious person?"
You didn't do that right. It's hi. And then he starts talking.
Well,
it's a very awkward
there's three
pause.
of them, so it's a regular pause, I think.
It's a very
Anything
awkward.
more than 3 ellipses, and you go into weird territory.
Go 13 territory.
What is the difference between a atheist and a religious person? Besides
atheist.
one who believes, I'm pronouncing this phonetically here, in God and one who doesn't. If a atheist can't prove there isn't a God, then to a religious person it means there must be a God. It's kind of a jump. Until you can prove there isn't a God, you will never change their mind. I can prove there isn't a God. That's in all caps. If you're interested on how the universe was really created, let me know. Well,
I'm interested.
I'm interested
but not
in,
from you.
Not from you.
No, I am, because I collect that. So feel free.
I really doubt this is sort of that Einstein thing where he can just grapple with these just huge, huge scientific issues but can't tie his shoes, or in this case, use spell check. I think that the greatest minds have grappled with a lot of this stuff, and generally speaking, the answers are messy and have a lot of open spaces. I really don't think Crazy Man on the internet is going to come to our public access atheist show instead of trying to get this published in a scientific
This is
journal.
John from the internet.
John from the internet.
Not Gary from the UK.
His website is http Google.
There's
Oh.
2 HTTPs in that.
2
so
HTTPs.
That's weird.
Secret Google.
John, I really doubt you have the secret of the universe.
I would like to hear it. Feel free to send it in. Like I said, I collect that sort of thing. But I mean, this kind of goes back to hard atheism versus soft atheism, and that's sort of like what Gary was promoting way back in the first season when he's like, well, I want to say there is no God. We have to stick it to the man. And I said, that sounds dogmatic. I was like, yep, that's dogmatic.
It gets the
We also, you can't prove a negative, right? So approaching it from the if we can disprove the negative, then the positive will be true. I think is what he was basically saying.
I think.
But you can't prove a negative.
I'm not being stabbed in the eye.
I guess that works.
You could be metaphysically right now. I would say.
I'm certain there's somebody out there who wants to stab me in the eye.
I think that this is just the thing that a lot of theists do, which is that they get the burden of proof absolutely backwards. That their belief is always treated as the default, and that if you want to prove this wrong, no, you're making a positive claim that a God exists. I want to see the evidence. I want to see your work. Then show me, because if you have good evidence, I will helplessly believe what you believe. If you don't, it's not the job of a skeptic. Like, prove to me right now that I can't fly. Well, I just don't want to. Still don't want to. And actually, you know what? Even if you throw me off a cliff, it doesn't work around skepticism. I can just argue around this all day to make it as non-falsifiable as possible. And this is what God claims do. You know what? If you believe something, prove it to me. Just prove it. Just prove it.
And there's a way to prove it. It's not emailing people with a cable access TV show. It's actually submitting some sort of scientific evidence and putting it into the scientific circles and having it go through peer review and having it published. That's what proving is on the level that we're looking for when we're talking about statements about the existence or non-existence of a creator of the universe.
And not just that, but prove the existence of anything, whether it's Bigfoot or the Loch Ness Monster. Show your work. And
I'm not waiting for a study to, prove that this glass is here.
Yeah, I mean, boop, boop, boop. I mean, that's not hard.
Testable.
That's testable right there. And if I want, I can actually put it somewhere in public, and you guys can all drive out and touch it. It's still going to be there until somebody probably steals it or throws it away.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, is that they're talking about something intangible, and largely what they do is they argue it into existence.
Yeah.
You can't really do it that way. I can't argue into existence something just through a riddle or a mind game or a puzzle. It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
There is...
Because I can argue anything into existence, including something that contradicts the thing that you argued into existence.
Sure. We're talking 6th grade imaginary games here. But there is a little bit more business that I wanted to do for this episode while we were on our way out. And as you know, as you've probably seen on the website, we have been taking donations, and we are continuing to take donations for our transition to AM radio to get us started. And we've been doing some work, and we had a comedy benefit a couple weeks ago now.
Successful one.
A
very, very
successful
funny one.
And like I said, we can confirm that we do have the money to start at KLAY. Our first episode is going to be January 9th. Same bat time, different bat channel. But we've received a lot of donations, and I'd like to say thank you to to the people who have donated. And I've got a list here, and I'm going to go through it. So it'd be Danny from Nova Scotia, Jeffrey from Michigan, Daniel from Alberta, Chris from Ontario, Oyvind from Norway, Michelle from France, Charles from the UK, Paul from Seattle, Robert from Kansas, Ryan from Virginia, Rochelle from Seattle, Michael from Texas, Christopher from Wisconsin, Astrid from Germany, Jonathan from Illinois, Christina from Japan, Brian from Australia, David from Ireland, Steve from Ontario, Jeff from Oak Harbor, Ryland from Alberta, Timothy from North Carolina, Vim from Sweden, Edsel from Lake Forest Park, Michael from Texas, Bob from Sammamish. Is that how you pronounce that?
Sammamish.
Sammamish. Rebecca from Florida, Chase from Florida, Scott from Florida, Chris from Michigan, and Scott from British Columbia. Thank you all.
Thank you, thank you. I know that it's not an easy time to be giving money. Right?
No.
And it's not an easy time of the year to be giving money because we have the holidays coming
Yeah.
up. The fact that you were willing to spare this and help keep our little weird heathen roadshow going, we just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. We really do appreciate it.
And as a token of our esteem, we actually got a recording of our comedy benefit, recorded in fabulous high def and stuff like that. And as a thank you, we will be providing a copy of our comedy benefit to everyone who has donated. And so you guys will be receiving very shortly an email from us with a URL to download one of your thank yous. And there is more to come. Thank you all.
I just wanted to say there, it is awesome that we got a donation from a guy who is the same name as a command line editor in Linux. I think that's awesome. It's spelled differently, I know, Vim. Sorry, apologies for that. I was just thinking.
I didn't make that joke. That is amazing. Yeah,
Sorry, it's either Emacs or Vim. What are you going to choose? What are you going to choose?
Yeah.
I have no idea what they're talking about.
The editor wars come to Ask an Atheist.
I will be Switzerland.
All right, that sounds good. And that was a fair amount of the globe.
Yeah,
surprisingly
multiple
so.
continents.
Yeah?
We're hoping to get something from a research station in Antarctica.
That is the only continent I haven't seen a viewer from yet.
Yeah, so please, Antarctica,
Hey,
watch our
McMurdo,
show.
I was looking at you.
Yeah, maybe a penguin can watch.
Or a puffin.
A puffin.
By the way, I'm reasonably certain the people who called in, not actually puffins.
Yeah. Well.
Well, you have to prove that they're not puffins.
I haven't tested it, I'm sorry.
I bet you this guy has a proof that they're not puffins. Probably on his weird little website.
So did you do this one already? Did we?
Yeah.
Oh, we did this one. So
Yeah.
this is the one actually we're moving along here a little bit. And I thought this one, actually hadn't read this until today. Hello all. This is a woman by the name of Kelly who was basically emailing us right after our Halloween episode. And she says, she relates, first, it was in fact a traumatic event that led me to solidify my position as an atheist. My infant son died from a congenital heart defect just 6 months ago, and it was about that time that I found your podcast, and love it, by the way. I have a degree in science and was raised to figure out things for myself. Before Luke's death, I never cared to really secure a position on God, but now I finally get it. I haven't seen enough evidence to prove God's existence, and I'm not mad at him, because he's not there. And the rest of the email is sort of talking about her personal story. But I mean, Mike and I think all of us say this often, which is, people who are atheists don't usually become atheists because they're mad at God and something terrible happened and we're going to get back to them. But sometimes it is an emotional event that leads people to shake up their preconceived notions about what happens in the world. And if that happens to be the death of the regrettable death of a child that has to do it, so be it. That doesn't make it less valid for her to have that opinion.
Well, as long as it's a first step in a path, not the entire step.
That's the important thing, as I like to say, is that the first step towards atheism is, that's part of the reason why, for the show, we don't really see it as an evangelical style show. I'm not interested in converting you to atheism with logic. I don't think we can convert you with logic. Usually, the first thing that that gets you along that path for a lot of people, not for everyone, but for a lot of people, is not necessarily a traumatic experience, but an emotional one.
And I would classify the "this just doesn't make sense" feeling as an emotional one.
That is a very emotional
Right.
thing. But the thing is it gets you started on the path. With atheism, emotion doesn't keep you there. It's the proof and everything else that we talk about on this show that keeps me an atheist. Because one thing that apologetics and religion knows pretty well is emotional manipulation.
Yeah.
It is a method of control that religion uses.
Well, that's what apologetics largely is. It's basically a way to combat doubt in somebody who already believes. It's not about trying to. They act as if this is a reason for I believe X, Y, Z, but it's not. That's one of the reasons I find Christian apologetics so dishonest. Is that it's a disingenuous thing. These are not the reasons that person believes. They are the reasons they tell themselves when the normal reasons fail.
Yeah.
To try to hold on. That's the nice thing about evidence, is that not only am I unafraid to be proven wrong about something, if I am wrong, I want to be proven wrong. I don't want to drastically hold on to something that isn't true.
That was sort of one of the bar conversations I have with people when somebody at the bar says, "Hey Sam, something about atheism," and then some guy goes, "Oh, an atheist must go Badger." Is like, well, no, you're an atheist for dogmatic reasons. If you got proof, if there was proof of God, you wouldn't believe it. And
That's a projection.
What I got, that's a projection. And I said, no. If there's proof of God, if there is scientific proof of God, I'm going to have to change. I'm not. I may not like it because I got a lot of questions. Let me tell you. But if there's proof, you got to move. But the fact of the matter is, there's proof. There is no proof. And because I'm an atheist, I don't believe there's ever going to be proof.
I don't think it's likely at all. I think that if somebody was going to come up with a proof by now, it would have happened.
Sure.
Looking hard enough. They've been trying that hard for the longest time to prove this stuff, even to people who already believe.
And then that goes into the side thing is, all right, you may have scientific proof of God. It's very clear that whatever proof that may show up isn't going to be like the Abrahamic God or any God that we've ever defined.
Right.
The universe is too weird for that.
Yeah, like I've always said, it hasn't really. It's never been, to me, the theism question. It's never really been one about evidence. It's one about our brains making the connection of how the sky and the trees and how wonderful love is and how that makes it. It really has more to do with the central conceit that people don't want to believe that they die and that's it, and also they also want to believe that the universe is simple enough for them to be able to understand it in their heads,
Or that they're important in the context of it, too.
and that they're important. I mean, that's also a very conceited notion, is that you, as insignificant as a creature you are actually important beyond the things that are around
the
you.
little
That
struggles.
to me is the core of what keeps people interested in theism, not evidence, not argumentation. And as we've said over and over again, apologetics is not about duking it out with atheists. It's about suppressing those little moments of doubt that happen in someone who's sort of emotionally wrapped up in this theism thing. So argumentation doesn't do anything. You're right to say we're not here to convert you, because argumentation is not going to take away the good feeling you get by thinking how awesome it would be to be reunited with your loved ones in heaven.
Not to say it isn't fun to have that argument. I mean,
yeah. Oh well, of course we have a show to do
it's
just
very
that.
entertaining.
But I don't think the goal of these arguments has ever been to try to change a theist into an atheist. If it happens, great, whatever. However, I think our goal is just to make sure that people understand where we're coming from. These guys have had a monopoly on this conversation for thousands of years. And a lot of that monopoly has been projecting stuff on us, like that guy saying, "Oh, you just believe it dogmatically, and you wouldn't." The only time I've ever heard somebody say that no amount of evidence would change their mind is usually a theist. It's a believer who says something like that. I would happily change my mind because I don't want to be wrong, because your beliefs are the building block that your actions are built upon. And if I'm going to believe something that is false, I'm going to move forward from a false premise, and I could do something harmful to myself or somebody else. I want to understand the universe on its own terms. I want to understand the universe to the greatest degree of accuracy possible. And I'd rather be right when something is something I don't like than have some sort of a comforting truth there, because that comforting truth may get me hurt.
Yeah.
Like, it might be nice to believe that I'm bulletproof and that nobody can hurt me, but there's only a countdown before I'm going to hurt myself with that.
Yeah. Too true.
Too true. Well,
We just unpacked that. Yeah, we don't need to do any more shows ever again. Solved.
Moving on.
I'm sure we have more though.
Well, we're actually sort of wrapping up our.
Getting close.
Getting close.
Getting close. I think it would be important to mention that you guys can still contact us. Not through the phone now because we're wrapping up the show, but if you want to send voicemails like the ones that we played on this show, please give us a call. Our phone number is 206-420-0997. And you can leave us a voicemail and we can address you on a future show.
Just as we have today. And again, because this show is coming to you from the distant past, we're not actually meeting anywhere because we're not actually here. So
go back home or turn the channel off and
you're gonna have to wait a couple weeks before we do that again, and it's going to be in a vastly different location. Right. I want to thank you guys for.
That's exactly what I wanted to reiterate. Is that you see the people that are also the people that are in front of the camera the most often. Some of these people are the people who come in here every week to do it, and occasionally they get the chance to get in front of the camera and speak their mind. The majority of what happens is, producers, we always take credit because we're the ones that get the awards, and that's fun. The people that are behind the scenes, they're the heroes. And thank you guys.
Yes,
thank you guys so much for our intrepid crew.
This
is the best starship in all of Starfleet. The best starship crew in all of Starfleet. And of course, let's not forget the people at SCAN who've done this despite incredible adversity in dealing with insane, wacko, crazy morons who get the funding taken away because of their terrible reputation, but also just the difficult logistical problem of having to keep a studio like this running with people being halfway trained on their equipment and destroying it and messing it up all the time. Ed Escalena, Penny, Andrea, of course, Nick McCoy, any number of people who we're forgetting, Rita, and of course Diane. She does a fantastic job.
Yeah,
and
you guys are awesome.
She doesn't agree with us, but she's always fought for us, and we've fight for her. So thanks, SCAN. We absolutely appreciate it.
I'd like to issue an apology to the city of Seattle. This would be kind of like when Reagan shut down the mental institutions. We apologize to the city of Seattle for unloading some of these people out on the streets. But now you can have this conversation on a street corner, and you can learn about why the Hurricane Katrina was an inside job.
And it has been an amazing ride for these past 7 months. It has been incredibly fun. Thank you guys. Thank you guys. Thank you guys. This has been completely amazing. I love what we've done. I really like where we're going. I really like what we're going to do. It's just we're on our way out of here.
I really love what we haven't not done.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
I really love what we will have not, never do, ever, perhaps.
That's okay. I'm lost too.
Okay, guys.
I want to thank you for watching, and we will
Good
see
night.
you next week
And
on
good
the
luck.
radio.
Bye-bye.